Today I had a fun conversation with Lindsey Kane Leaverton. We discuss her background as an evangelical on the Christian music touring circuit and the perils of coming out as gay in that environment. That leads us to talking about her new book, Not Another Self-Help Book, and how it's designed to help people who are struggling with loss, trauma, addiction, stress, and so much more. We ended up joking a lot for such a serious subject, which is perhaps gallows humor, but I think it's adding something interesting to this conversation. I hope you enjoy this conversation with Lindsey Kane Leaverton. Speaking of the mics, you were a morning show host for a while.
A guest host, yeah.
Well, tell me about that.
So I was a guest host on the morning show for The River, which was a local Austin, which is redundant, I understand, but a local Austin.
Well, not to people who aren't here. They don't know.
That's fair. Christian radio station. And I love doing that. And we got to interview some really cool people. I think that I didn't realize at first, but I was playing a role that I wasn't aware I was playing, but I was kind of the dumb blonde on the morning show. And that's fine. But in hindsight, I'm thinking, oh, I was more of a character, a character guest. But I had a really fun time. And I got to meet some cool people.
Yeah.
Way too early, though. I had to get up at like 3 when not even God's awake. So it was very upsetting. So annoyed.
So how did you find your way into doing that?
Oh, gosh. That was like 100 years ago.
2004.
Look at you. You have it all.
I have to do my research. Look, I probably do low end 4 hours, I would guess, of research, and usually much higher and sometimes more like days or even weeks of research on people before we get on the show. So
that's terrifying.
One that I have that's coming up, I've probably legitimately spent over 24 hours already on it, and I probably have another 10 to 20 hours left to do on that guy.
Wow. Mm-hmm. I never want to be your ex, because you could find all of the dirt and all of the social media stuff. So let's see. I graduated from college, and then I went straight into touring full time. So I was, playing, 200, 250 shows a year, different worship leading conferences, etc. And I don't remember how I met the folks at the morning show, but now she's a dear friend, Heather. She used to be on the Heather and Rob or Bama on Case 101, and she switched to go to the Christian music station, and I don't know how they got my name. Honestly, I cannot remember. Maybe I'll ask Heather, but
it was written on a stall somewhere.
It was, right? Call me for a good time. Wake up at 3 and be a Christian radio DJ. It's what I always dreamed of.
Stall.
Yeah, exactly. And I thought that sounds horrible very early, but I was trying to, get as much awareness about my career and the type of artist I was trying to be. I thought this is a great opportunity. So I said yes. And I really enjoyed it. It gave me a whole new appreciation for radio and what people do, like what you're doing on the microphone. Mm-hmm. I loved it.
That's great. So you were also around the same time, I'm not sure exactly, a motivational speaker, and you were touring. So can you kind of talk about that a little bit?
Yes, I can. So I started, playing the guitar, taught myself how to play the guitar, started writing songs when I was 17, and then kept doing that all through college. Recorded
just for fun, or?
Yeah, at first I had just moved to Austin. I didn't know anyone, didn't have any friends, and the basketball gym was closed. So I found my mom's guitar in her closet. It had maybe 5 strings, and figured, well, what have I got to lose? So taught myself some chords, started writing songs, and recorded my first album by the time I went to college. And then, a coffee house gig here turned into a conference or a bigger venue. And I kept doing it, kept recording albums, kept writing songs. So then by the time I was about, a junior, I was, going to Nashville and traveling on the weekends and going to college during the weeks. And I really wanted to stop going to college so I could tour full time. But my parents gave me some really good advice. Finish school, which I did. But I had enough, gigs booked out after I graduated that I knew I could at least do it for a year and a half. and make a living. And I ended up doing it 6 years.
That's hard, making a living
full time.
doing any kind of thing in the music industry and making money is very, very, that's an accomplishment.
Thank you. I mean, it was, I was predominantly in, evangelical Christian world. And so those events are huge, and you're talking, Jumbotron, smoke machine, all that stuff. So these churches and these big Christian organizations paid, very well. Mm-hmm. And so I was able to, and I'm real OCD when it comes to being a businesswoman. So not a lot of artists can also run a business. But I enjoy that part of it so much. And as I would sing, I am a storyteller, and I love getting to share stories and hopefully, making people's lives suck a little less and give them a little bit of hope or peace with whatever I share. So I didn't go into it thinking I'm going to be a motivational speaker. I just was sharing from my heart, being authentic in between the songs that I would sing. And that turned into getting to have more speaking gigs, or whatever you want to call them. And I really love speaking. I love it. My goal in life, to be perfectly transparent with you, I am obsessed with stand-up comedy. Mm-hmm. And it'll have to wait because I won't make a living, but maybe
I'm not
when
going to ask you to tell me a joke.
No, please don't, because I'm not funny on command at all. But yeah, so that's kind of how I got into the speaking aspect of it.
That's cool. Are you doing improv classes or anything? Like, how do you get into that?
No, it's funny. During COVID, I started writing the book, but I also wanted to start working on different bits. And so I've been working on just different comedy bits for about 3 years. And I've built up, if I showed you the scrolling of my document, you would think I was Rain Man, because there's just a ton of content. And so then about 2 years ago, I got a wild hair up my ass. I was like, I'm going to do an open mic at a, comedy place. And the first one I did, I didn't even plan on doing it. I was visiting, I was there for a friend's birthday, and she said, go sign up for the open mic. That's all I want for my birthday. Make me laugh. Mm-hmm. And so I got up there, and it ended up being funny, which I was very surprised. And then I did 2 more open mics. I did one at Cap City Comedy Club, mm-hmm. which it just felt like it fit. It's like, this is what I hope I get to do someday. Mm. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
Do you, I know there's an optimization here and there somewhere. In fact, I was playing with the idea of possibly writing some software around this, where you can like pick synonyms that will have the letter S in them, because S's are funnier or K's are funnier. And I was trying to get to a level of optimization where you could just basically,
can you give me an example? Like SK, like a skiing kangaroo.
So you want the punchline to be as short as possible.
Yeah.
So I think Jim Gaffigan has a joke, something about whoever invented the Hot Pocket basically went to his friend or went to somebody and said, I'm butchering his joke here. He went to somebody and said, hey, I got an idea. Let's make a Pop-Tart, but put some nasty meat with the S, right? The
nasty,
S.
yes.
Yeah, nasties. The S is the part of the punchline.
Oh my gosh.
So you got to have an S in there. Yeah.
Hot Pockets. If y'all haven't seen it, you have to go Google Jim Gaffigan Hot Pockets.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite bits.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, so you can optimize for certain keywords. I apparently have not got there yet.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Optimization, writing software, and no clue.
Okay. Well,
but you sound very smart.
I will open your mind to this possibility in the future.
Thank you. I need all the help I can get.
All right. So, so at some point, you were deeply embedded in the church. You were a true believer, I would say.
Yes, 100%.
Okay, so tell me about that and sort of the next phase.
I grew up going to church. I was in church in the womb. Was there every Sunday, Saturday for Awanas, Wednesday night for choir, Bible drill champion. Okay, I don't want to brag.
Wow,
but I was just the reigning champion for way too many years. And it was my everything. And it wasn't just church or religion. I really have had a strong faith and a very real, authentic relationship with who I call God, right? Universe, source, whatever word you want to use. And so that was always really important to me. I have always been passionate about my faith, but it got mixed up with some really bad teaching. And now looking back, I can see a lot of it was brainwashing. I don't blame my parents at all. I mean, they were doing the best that they could, and they have a really beautiful faith to this day. But I got a little dogmatic. I'll say a lot dogmatic, and was going on the mission trips and proselytizing and handing out Jesus tracts on Bourbon Street in New Orleans. I mean, just stuff that I look back, I'm like, I don't even know who that was. But I believed hook, line, and sinker. If somebody in the church told me, don't drink, it's a sin. Or, I did the purity card. I took the purity pledge. So when I finally came out to myself at 17, which was so important.
That same year you picked up guitar.
Yes, exactly. Your research is paying off. I admitted to myself, and I write about this situation in the book because it was very embarrassing. Basically, my best friend's mom walked in on us, and we weren't kissing or anything, but I wanted desperately to kiss my best friend. I was 17, and I went to bed that night, and I remember saying, oh shit, I think I'm a lesbian. And where I was, the church I was involved in, that type of religion and religiosity and how dogmatic everything was, that was not an option. You could not be gay and also love God. I was told from, ever since I can remember, homosexuality is an abomination. Leviticus and Romans and all these different verses. And so once I came out to myself at 17, I dove into this world of ex-gay therapy, also known as reparative therapy, and listened to CDs from this organization called Exodus International, which, allegedly would help you pray the gay away if you had unwanted same-sex attraction. Okay. And so I lived a life where I thought God just messed up, or I was broken, or if I didn't.
So you actually wanted to convert.
I
back.
did 100%. And I was one of the most homophobic people because I was trying to throw people off the scent. I figure if I can make fun of that lesbian volleyball coach, then nobody's going to look at me and think that I'm gay, because my biggest fear was that somebody would find out about my struggle.
One of my friends, he basically said when he went to conversion therapy, he's like, I'm like, did it, what happened or whatever? He's like, Robert, what do you think happens when you put a whole bunch of gay kids together?
We're gonna hook up. Yeah.
So
it's like, oh, you're an alcoholic? Well, let's have our meetings in a bar. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But I was devoted. I got into college, and the more that my career grew for worship leading and ministry, writing Christian music songs, doing the whole, contemporary Christian world, the bigger that my career got, the deeper into the closet I had to go. And I started to get really sick, and I didn't know why. I thought I was being obedient, right? I'm trying to fight this struggle. In college, I would fast every Thursday, not eat food, so that every time I got hungry, it would remind me to pray that God would take away my same-sex attraction. So when I say I was a true believer, I mean, I was in it so deep, I would have to go up and sing after someone who just preached about how being gay is an abomination. And after a while, that takes its toll on you, as you can imagine. And it was not an easy transition. It wasn't like I woke up one day and thought, oh, this is all hogwash, let's go hook up with a lady. It was this arduous, painful journey that I never thought I would get out of. And the impetus for change was, I was in college, and I was engaged to a wonderful Christian man who loved me, and we would have, been miserable, right? Because I am gay. I was gay. And I was watching a movie with him on my right and my best friend on my left. Same couch. And my best friend, this is a common theme, I was in love with her and I wasn't in love with him. And I had this moment in the middle of the movie where I'd look back on all the therapy, all the CDs I'd listened to, the journaling, the fasting, the praying. I mean, I had people lay hands on me, like anything I could do. And I was just more gay. Like I was not less gay. Because if I tell you, don't think about a piece of chocolate cake, don't think about a piece of chocolate cake, you're thinking about a piece of chocolate cake. So I went to bed that night and I was just crushed. I remember, I'm not a big crier, but I was just bawling on the carpet upstairs in my room. And I wanted to die. This has never been a thing for me. I've been an optimist. I'm typically a happy person. I love life, but I could not do it anymore. Like I knew that this was not going anywhere. So then I'm looking down the road at this life of struggle and pain and loneliness. Gonna marry this guy I don't love, and he deserves better, as did I.
Did he know?
He did. I had shared with him a dream that I had, like a lesbian dream, to try and give him a little idea. But the way that you come out when you're an evangelical Christian, it sounds like this. I struggle with same-sex attraction, but I'm actively fighting against it so that I can be the woman that God wants me to be. Like, how fucked up is that? So I'm crying on the carpet, and I realize I can't do this anymore. If I wasn't such a weenie with maybe pain, or if I had some way to kill myself with very little effort and pain, I may have done it that night. Instead of doing that, I prayed what I call now my suicide prayer, and I was begging God, please kill me in my sleep. Like, take me in my sleep. I don't care. I don't care anymore. Or wake me up straight. I'm done. I'm done fighting. I need a miracle. And I went to bed and I woke up, and there was a part of me that was like, okay, am I still gay? I'd think about Jennifer Aniston and be like, yeah, no, I'm totally still gay. And I,
so it was, huh?
look, Jennifer Garner, like I can list them all. Okay. Although I won't get off on that tangent, but if we have time, ask me about Bradley Cooper.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Right.
So, I end up seeing my best friend that next day, and that is when I got gut level honest. And I thought, I've missed something. Like, I know who I am. I know what I bring to the table. I know that I want to make a positive impact on the world. As cheesy as that sounds, I mean it. I think I missed something. So I started to get really curious about, what does God think about me? Was I created a mistake? Is there hope for me? And I set out to really prove that being gay is a sin and not what I wanted for my life. And I went back to the original Hebrew text in scripture, and I really wanted to know that if I'm going to make this change and start transitioning into a life where I can reconcile my faith and my sexuality, I've got to know that this is what it is and have no regrets. And so that started this beautiful journey of reconciling my faith and my sexuality, and realizing I'd been sold a bag of bullshit, that there's nothing wrong with me. My gayness is my superpower now. It's a beautiful part of me, and it's allowed me to, make an impact and help a lot of people who think they have to choose between their faith and their sexuality.
So what do you think about that? Same-sex attraction is an abomination. That specific, that word, that abomination. What do you think about that now?
Oh, it's bullshit. Yeah. I don't think it's true. I think it's very small-minded. I think that it's based on a lot of, Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. It's like, well, if God made Adam and Eve, then same-sex relationships can't be okay. It's just got to be heterosexual relationships. I don't think it's an abomination, but let's say I did think it was an abomination. Well, just go read the Old Testament about how many other things are an abomination.
See, this is why I run issue to people who don't like the word, because it didn't mean that the way that we think it means today.
Say more.
It meant more like not recommended. Because, and I think it actually makes a lot of sense at the time, because if you're going to eat shellfish or a pig or whatever, they didn't know what those things contained, right? And same-sex relations tend to spread diseases in ways that heterosexual relationships did not at the time. And you get anything wrong with you back in the dark ages, you're dead, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what it is. Like life expectancy is in the teens, or late teens or whatever.
I didn't know
or
that.
20s or whatever.
Jeez.
So I think that the word is probably the correct translation, but it doesn't mean what we think it means in today's standards. So like now when we think of something as abomination, it is truly hard stop, like absolutely cannot be done. And back then I think it was more like, well, everyone, it's kind of, see, I feel like the Bible, not being a biblical scholar here, by the way.
Me either, just Bible drill champion.
But I feel like many things in the Bible make a lot of sense if you're looking at it through the lens of people at the time living through situations. So let's say, like, I have two groups of people. That I'm a slave owner, that guy's a slave owner, and we have 10 slaves each or whatever. And I beat my slaves every single day and make them work every single day. And that guy gives them 1 day off a week. That guy's slaves are going to live longer, they're going to be healthier, they're going to do more work, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So maybe a day for remembrance, a day for feasting, a day for relaxing or whatever is something coming down from heaven telling us that this is the right way to live. And it might be God incarnate. Maybe that's how God manifests. But ultimately, that manifested itself in a way that might kind of appear to be nothing other than, from our sort of scientific perspective today, as something that can be explained by modern science. So I don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. There's probably something interesting about why it exists. Not to say that I put, no pun intended, faith into any individual sense or stuff in the Bible, sort of as it's written, as we see it today, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. And that's what I think people who know me and who are going to read the book, I incorporate my faith. I incorporate some scripture, but I also incorporate some quotes from other religious leaders, Buddha, Rumi, but there's so much power in some of the themes that I now can go back and say, you know what? I don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater, which is the weirdest term. I don't know where, I just want to know who's the first person that was like, don't throw the baby. There was a baby with bathwater. You know what I mean? Anyways, that poor baby, but I digress. Can we drink bourbon yet?
You can drink whatever you like. I never tell people what's in these drinks, so you've just
dadgummit,
just disclosed. Sometimes it's water, sometimes it's wine, sometimes it's iced tea.
Oh, with me, it's going to be bourbon.
Sometimes it's bourbon.
Yeah.
So
and
today,
I'm doing really good with dry January.
It's going
clearly
super well.
It's going so well.
Super well. Yeah. I actually don't care what people drink. I just try to make them feel comfortable.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So one of the themes, I have not read your book because it has not been out yet. So this is literally the first time I'm laying eyes on it, literally today. So you have to apologize, but I can't really have done the research necessary.
I am not worried about it at all.
But I did get a couple snippets here and there when you were talking about it online. So one thing you said is that you gained perspective. And I'd like to kind of dig into that a little bit. What do you mean when you say that you gained perspective? Like, what exactly did you learn about religion and yourself after coming out of that?
Oh my goodness. That's a really good question. You're good at this. So
that's why they pay me so much money.
That's right. Make all the big bucks. Gosh, my perspective was blown to bits. There was no perspective shift. It was almost like a perspective paradigm was torn completely down and then started to get rebuilt when I realized, oh, okay, I needed to leave God and the church to find my unique relationship with my higher power. Okay. I started to relearn things that I thought I knew, like prayer, having a conversation with the divine, the universe, the source of all that is and was and is to come. But also reframing the way that I felt about my past and my trauma and the pain and the religious trauma that people kept saying, Lindsey, why are you still interested in church? Because after I came out, I found a few open and affirming churches I was able to sing at, and that was really healing. I'm like, why are you even fucking with that? You know, these people, I got kicked out of churches.
Why did you?
Well, I'm about to answer that.
All right.
Yeah. It was I got cyberbullied, death threats. I wasn't even super famous, but it's a small world in the Christian world. And every single time I get asked that question, I can only think of one answer because it's the true answer, but God never left me. Like he, she, or they never echoed what I was hearing from his people. Christians, I would say, with the small c. And I had such a transformative miracle happen that I write extensively about in the book because it changed my life. And so I don't want to spoil it. I can maybe give a little hook, but it was something really significant that happened completely by random and happenstance on an airplane in 2009. And ever since that day, I've never doubted God's love for me. Ever, not one day. So that was probably the biggest shift.
So I can't remember if you said this or I felt like I added it in color, but it was something like the lines of the unchangeable changed. And so
that was you.
Okay.
I haven't said that.
All
That's
right.
smart.
Well, I was going to give you credit for it.
Please do.
I'm pretty sure I read it somewhere, or maybe I came up with it. I don't think so. But how I took it to mean, or when I said it out loud in my brain, or however this came to be, a couple words, I took it to mean the underpinnings of your faith themselves were gone. Yeah. But it sounds like maybe that's not completely true. Maybe the underpinnings never did change. It was sort of the kind of, as you said multiple times, the bullshit structure around it.
The scaffolding.
Scaffolding, right? So the structure is still there, the scaffolding that's, holding up the, torture this analogy a bit more, the windows on the outside or the facade. It wasn't the core. Does that sound right? Or is that?
No, I think it is. It's the foundation was not shaken. Imagine like a house, that's built on a foundation. The entire house was obliterated, but the foundation was still there, which was just my really pure love of God and my faith. And so when I lost everything, when I came out in 2009, I lost everything within 3 weeks.
What does that mean?
I was going from, the touring full time, at that point traveling parts of the world. Like I got to go to Egypt and be a worship leader, and this guy proposed to me at the pyramids. That was a fun story. But I went from having 250 dates a year to, in the span of 3 weeks, unemployed, lost my career, lost my ministry. A year and a half worth of gigs were canceled. Albums were pulled from stores, mailed back to me. Songs that were on radio. It was only like at 2 a.m. I didn't get the good radio spot because I wasn't famous or anything. Taken off the radio. Legal threats. It was a really nasty coming out experience for me. And that caused a lot of trauma. I don't know where I was going with that.
Well, in terms of the scaffolding or
yes, thank you,
yeah.
Thank you. So when all that happened, and like what does that look like to lose everything? I mean, I lost most all of my friends. My family had a very hard time with it. My brother and I didn't talk for 5 years. He was one of my best friends. But I always had that little seed of like the little Lindsey who was always really passionate about her faith. I don't know if you remember this, but I don't know where it is in the Bible, but it talks about how, there's this tree and the tree gets chopped down and all that's left is the little root, the root of Jesse. And then that's upon which the kingdom of God was built and Jesus and blah, blah, blah. So it felt very much like that. Like I was just a stump, but there was a tiny little root. And that was enough. That gave enough life to where I started putting one foot in front of the other. I grieved a ton. I thought my life was over. But that's when I felt the closest to God.
When you're thinking back about these people who kind of came after you or suddenly turned on you or whatever, excuse me, do you feel like a sense of empathy towards them, or do you feel like, I know you said you don't blame your parents as an example, but do you feel like they're being hoodwinked still, or do you feel like they're on their own journey and that's nothing to do with you, or like, how do you visualize them?
Well, I want to answer the first part of your question because I think it's important. Do I see these different people with empathy? Yes, because I was them. I sat one of my good friends down early on when I was still very much in the closet, hating myself. And she came out to me as gay, like a freshman in college. And I remember being heartbroken that I wasn't going to see her in heaven. This is me who's sitting here now, 41 years old. I told her that. And so I have empathy because I was them. I had that same mindset. I thought it was black and white, and this was just, you don't do that. You don't become gay. With my parents, I have insane amounts of empathy and grace. They are unbelievable humans. They actually, I'd say, practice their faith really beautifully. My dad's my best friend. Even though they really struggled with me coming out, they always showed up for me. I remember when, I was just kind of at my lowest low, they came and brought me ice cream at my condo. And it wasn't like they were saying, we condone what's going on, or all of a sudden we believe being gay is great. No, but they just sat with me. And I mean, that was 2009. They have grown so much. I have grown a lot. And we have this beautiful relationship. They're incredible grandparents to my kids. They have come a long way. Like they ended up leaving the church that they were at. So they have come such a long way. Are they going to march with me in a pride parade? No. But they came to my wedding. I never thought that my evangelical parents would come to my gay wedding, and they were on the front row in their car. So they have shown me that it's possible to do life with people who don't totally align with your beliefs.
Out of curiosity, how were they received amongst their peers? Did they get any backlash?
They did. Yeah, they did. And they're such an inspiration because instead of becoming kind of bitter or, lost, like, what do we do? Because they had to come out too. When you have a kid who's gay, the parents of that kid have moments of coming out themselves. We have a gay kid, right? And so what they did, they actually started a ministry, and they had it for 8 years, where they would help Christian parents who had LGBTQ kids and were struggling with whether or not to love them, stay in a relationship with them, or cut them off. And so I can't imagine the droves of families that they helped in an 8-year period, families who are now actively loving their LGBTQ kids because of my parents. That stuff's really, really freaking cool.
That's great. What's the name of it? If you're willing me to share.
what is the name of it? Lifeline.
Okay.
It's not I don't think they kind of took a break a couple years ago.
Okay.
But yeah, they just helped.
Sounds like something that should exist.
Right. Well, I will say,
because what's the alternative?
Cutting your kids off. And then that's why the suicide rate for LGBTQ kids is so high, because most evangelical families, they're done with you. They'll just kick you to the curb. So, that's why organizations like Out Youth are so important. PFLAG, Mama Bears. One of my dear friends, Susan Cottrell, and her husband have Freed Hearts Ministry, and they help parents who have LGBTQ kids with that faith element. So there's some great stuff happening, but it was tough. It was not pretty at first.
Since you mentioned it, you got married during COVID, and there was not to say it in a mean way, but there was a puff piece written about your marriage, which was actually, in hindsight, a really interesting slice of life. Like, I'm sure at the time, because it's about you, and you're like, oh wow, but since I wasn't there and I didn't know you at the time, for me, reading it, I'm only reading it as a sort of historian going back, and I'm like, wow, that's right. That's what COVID was like. People had to totally upend their lives, put everything on hold, or completely change all their plans to do something bizarre and different like you did. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I love what happened. And I love that you say puff piece. I'm like, I'd never thought about that. Was it a puff piece? I'm like, oh my gosh. Thank you to whoever. I like to be puffed. We all need a puffing. No, it was crazy. We had planned our dream wedding, just the most beautiful venue and all the things that I won't even get into. And then as the mayor's order came down, it's like, okay, you can have 100 people at your gathering. And then it was 60, and then it was 20. We saw the writing on the wall, and finally we got that. Our wedding planner said, okay, the mayor just put out the order. It's like March 29th of 2020. And we were supposed to get married on Good Friday, April 10th. And the whole funny thing was nothing says he is risen or happy Easter like a good lesbian wedding. And so we ate our feelings. We're really sad when we had to cancel our wedding. We thought we would just postpone it a year. And then about a week later, my dad called and he had COVID. And this was early on when we're spraying grocery bags and being psychotic. Right. And we didn't know what was going to happen to these early folks that got COVID. My dad was super high risk. He just had triple bypass surgery. You don't really get more high risk than he did. And when he told me that, I remember exactly where I was standing in this park, and I thought, oh, I'm not waiting a year, because this is my main man. This is my best friend. He actually might come to the wedding, him and my mom. We're gonna do this sooner rather than later. And so we planned an entirely new wedding in 17 days. Somehow finagled all the people that needed to be there, and got married at a drive-in movie theater. People came in their cars. It was a totally COVID safe, and it was just a really beautiful moment.
And you telecasted or whatever on 3 different channels as well, from what I read.
Yes. So it was up on the big screens in everybody's car, and then it was on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, because so many people couldn't come. Like my brother. Right. People that were out of town. And it ended up going viral, which I remember finding out the New York Times was going to be at the wedding. I'm like, is it like a slow news week? What is going on? Who cares? I thought our love was beautiful, but I didn't know why anyone else would care. And looking back, it was just such a dark, scary time that we were this blip of love and light, like these crazy, hot lesbians in Texas are doing this insane thing, and everyone lost their shit. And so for my 15 minutes of fame, I guess, but it ended up being in People magazine, on the Today Show. Like, it was insane, and it was so fun too. Yeah, I loved that.
Yeah, I can say puff piece because I've had puff pieces written about me. So I absolutely am in that camp. But I don't think that's a bad thing.
Good.
I mean, you learn. There's a time when that made sense. You know what I mean? And it made a lot of sense. And I agree because looking back on it, if I were just sitting on my couch and again, another day of just, nothing happening, you're just sitting there at home. I mean, some cool article about a couple of people getting married at a drive-through. It's kind of, interesting. I guess you could do it there. It's something to read and something to do because no one's doing anything. We're all just stuck at home.
Yes. And people came in their PJs. It was so fun. They had, people
Did you encourage that or did they just do
yeah.
it? Okay.
No, yeah. We had a whole thing. We were like, we want you to come in your PJs, decorate your car. So people decorated their cars. It was insane. I still don't know who was at the wedding because everyone was in their cars. I mean, I know some people who came, obviously, but and it was this rickety old stage. I mean, they'd never had a wedding there. This wasn't a thing that you do. It's in Buda, Texas, which is, you don't see a lot of my folk in Buda, Texas. And it was just so funny. It was so funny. Such a wonderful memory.
I'm glad you did it.
I am too.
So, okay. So then you moved at some point into wealth management. How did that seems to me like a bit of a left turn.
My whole life is left turns.
This is why you're glad you went to college?
Yeah. My degree in history with a teaching degree and coaching minor, really good for music and wealth management.
Very helpful.
And being an author.
And comedy
someday, Lord willing. So when I was going through coming out in 2009, I lost my job. I had nothing else to do. I tried to get a teaching job because that's what my degree was in. The one school that offered me a job closed a week later. I just thought that's a closed door. Like that's a definitive closed door. So I was pouting at Starbucks and I saw this old friend from high school and she was like, Lindsey? I was like, what are you doing here? And she goes, well, I'm just, drinking coffee. And she goes, how are you? And I said, well, I'm kind of going through a bit of a transition. No, life is a shit show. Everything is upside down. And I'm looking for a job. She goes, well, my husband's a manager at Papado. You want to wait tables? I was like, absolutely. So why not? So here I am. I interviewed and I got the job, which is a miracle. And then I spilled beer on a baby, which was horrible. But I looked so cute in my little red bow tie. And I
never even saw it coming.
The baby never saw it coming. And the baby was hammered the whole So I remember there was this moment and I'm cleaning up breadcrumbs off of the carpet. And the birthday singer, Carl, was over here singing a birthday song to a patron who's, eating there. And it was this crazy moment where I had a flashback of being on stage in front of thousands of people, Jumbotron smoke machine. And here I am cleaning up breadcrumbs, making less than minimum wage. I was a horrible server, just really bad at my job. But people liked me, so I think they gave me a break.
Sure.
And I don't even get to sing happy birthday. I'm not even the birthday singer at Papado. You know what I mean?
I didn't know they had you're not.
I don't think they do anymore.
Qualified?
Carl fucked it up for everyone. No, he didn't. Yeah. No, nobody even asked me to try out. I'm like, I have 7 albums, you motherfuckers. Like, let me sing.
You think you would have
didn't
swiped that card? Like I could.
No, I didn't.
Why not?
Because I was just so depressed. Honestly.
Happy fucking birthday.
Yeah. Happy fucking birthday, you losers that tip like hell. So on New Year's Eve of going from 2009 to 2010, 2009 was the year that will live in infamy. I don't pray a lot, but I have these definitive moments where I'll never forget. And I just prayed, I'm ready for the next thing. Like I'd been waiting tables about 6 months. It was just like new year tomorrow. I would like an open door to something else. And the very next day, this senior VP from Wells Fargo sat in my section. I write about her in the book. We're still dear friends.
Pour a beer on her? Or?
I didn't. I didn't. I just threw a bunch of coconut shrimp at her face. No, I didn't. I was actually good that day. I did not screw anything up. And she, after about 10 minutes, she goes, "Why are you here?" I said, "Well, because it's my shift and this is my job now." She goes, "No, why are you waiting tables? Like you seem like a competent," not saying that people that wait tables aren't competent, but she just wanted to know why I was waiting tables. I said, "Well, I'm kind of in a transition," gave her a bullshit answer. And she said, "Well, do you have a degree?" I go, "Yes, ma'am." She goes, "Are you a fast learner?" I go, "Yes, ma'am." And she goes, "I want you to come work for me." So she sets me up with this interview, and I'm going to try to make this story shorter, but somehow I fool an entire room of these. It's a group interview, so all these district managers and important looking people, and it's me and there's 22 applicants, and everyone walks in and they've got,
at the same time you actually saw these
at
people?
the same time. I felt like I was on American Idol.
Wow, I've never
and we
seen that
did
before.
role playing. They don't do that anymore. This was,
I thought that was like in
forever
TV
ago.
only.
Oh no, it's real life.
Or like casting or something,
right? And all these,
everyone's dressed like Elvis, all in the same room.
That's hilarious. Elvis, that would be an interesting way to dress in the financial services industry.
Yes.
I was just singing an Elvis song in my head while you were doing that.
Like a bunch of Elvises accidentally show up to the interview.
Are we here for the Vegas interview or what? No,
we got to hire one of them.
That's right. Let's pick the girl in her rented suit from Steinmart. So it was like 20 dudes and 2 women, and they all had MBAs. And my resume, ready, A&M, Texas A&M.
That helps.
Okay. Singer, waitress. So I think this is a joke. I'm like, I'm going to get some good material for my future stand-up career.
Obviously.
Let's just do this. And I made it through all these rounds, and they sit me in this office with one of the big wigs, and she goes, "We would like to offer you the position." And I started laughing because I thought she was kidding, because I literally was going to take the suit back to Steinmart. I left the tags in. I didn't even know what an interest rate was. Like, I don't know anything about anything. And so they offered me a job. Long story, even longer. I was a personal banker, worked my way up to business banker, started managing branches, fell in love with helping people, with their money. Turns out I was good at it. And then became, kind of business development with another bank, started the private bank for a large bank that I used to work at, and then, got all my licenses, and now have been at the firm I'm at for almost 6 years. Director of wealth management. I love it. I'm good at it. It's crazy to me. And I don't dress like this at work.
Are you sure?
I wish I did. I wish you could have seen me today, what I wore at work today. I had my little corporate bun and, just like my little whatever. Mm-hmm. But this is the real me.
Mm-hmm, obviously.
So,
okay. So you were absolutely right. That had nothing to do with your degree at all. It's kind of fully out of left field.
Yeah.
And then you decided you want to start writing somewhere along those years, I guess, because this has been a while in the making. This has been multi years, from what I understand, in writing. This is not like something you whipped out like last week.
Oh my gosh, no. Even my kids were like, "Why is this taking so long?"
Like ChatGPT did not exist. This is not a product. You had
Hell
to do this,
no.
You had
This
to do
is
this by
all
hand.
original. Yeah, this is OG, no AI involved.
I plagiarized this by hand.
Right? Oh my gosh. Oh gosh. Don't even get me started. A lot of bad financial advice on AI right now, so just be careful out there. So I've always been a big journaler. I love to journal and write, and as I would go through my therapy sessions, I would journal what I would learn, if I would have these aha moments. I find meaning in the littlest things in life, and so I've just always written it down. If I see something and it's a metaphor for something else, I love to write it down. So I've been compiling for, years and years and years of just writing. And then at the beginning of COVID, I felt a very clear, I hate to use the word calling because it feels very religious, and I still have some baggage from religion, but it was this pull, and it was as if the universe said, "It's time to start writing the book. Like shit or get off the pot. Just start writing.
It wasn't writing in general. You had a book in mind.
Yes, I had a book in mind. I'd already had a lot of content that I'd been writing. And so I started adding to it. And I thought the book was going to be called The Gift of Pain.
That's a good title.
Thank you. I'd gone through like a 15-year journey with chronic pain. I write about it in the book, but it had been, to all these doctors, different tests, and finally got to the point where I started working with like a spiritual healer who's also this amazing career coach, which is so funny. And everything changed in my life. Like I started to see trauma differently, loss, the stuff that I'd been through. And I could finally say, not everything happens for a reason. Like, can we just all agree? I'm so sick of hearing everything happens for a reason. Lots of stuff does happen for a reason, but not everything. And just because we can give meaning and purpose to the shit that's happened in our lives doesn't mean that somebody's up there in the clouds ordaining it, right? And that was a big shift for me. And then it dovetailed as I continued writing. I would go away for 1 weekend a quarter, and I would hide myself in an Airbnb, and I would just write for like 12 to 15 hours a day. And 3 years later, I had written 262,000 words. And it had...
I can't put that in context. How many pages is that approximately?
Well, a book is supposed to be 90,000. So this is 90,000.
Mm-hmm.
So 262 is like, I wrote 4 books in one.
Right.
Right. And it wasn't crap. I was like, I just need to write something today. Like this was stuff that mattered. I was getting downloads from, the universe, God, whatever, and putting those into writing. And it all unfolded. It was like a puzzle. And then it turned into 16 chapters with the gift of blank, the gift of humiliation, the gift of conflict, and weaving my stories, other people's stories, anecdotal stories throughout it. And then it took a year just to edit.
Okay, so you said what the book's title wasn't.
The book's title wasn't. What is the book's title? Not another self-help book.
There it is.
Which I love because it's like not another self-help book.
Is that how it's meant to be read?
Yeah.
I was wondering which way you were meant to
Both.
say.
Double entendre.
Uh-huh.
But also it's not another self-help book. And I know everybody says that. Like, oh, I'm different. This is different. And then it's all the same. As you interact with the book, I purposefully wanted it to be an experience. So it wasn't just like you're reading and then you go on to the next chapter. You finish the book, you put it on a shelf. I've incorporated my music. And so every chapter has a QR code that leads the reader to one of my original songs that aligns with the chapter in some way. And then I love coloring and doodling because I have ADHD and that's the only way I can pay attention. Otherwise, I'm actually doing really good today without doodling.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think you'd want me to doodle.
I don't care. You can do. I just don't have a pen or paper in front of you.
No, it's fine. I'm good.
We can get JC to bring something in.
No, JC. And I love adult coloring books. And so I developed 19 adult coloring book pages that are also sprinkled throughout the book with the idea of you reading this really dense chapter about, let's say, the gift of heartache. And you're drawing, you're listening to a song, it starts to soak in a different way than if you just go immediately on to the next chapter. So it is really this journey, an album, a coloring book, a book, all in one. And I've never been more proud of anything in my life other than being a mom.
Well, that's very cool. You, on your, I think the main website for this book, I'm not 100% sure I'm remembering which page it is, but there's a photo of you face planted down like from a couch, like you just kind of didn't even make it fully onto the couch, like your legs are sticking up, and you got some like old like McDonald's or something.
Whataburger.
Oh, it was Whataburger. Okay, I couldn't tell by the wrappers.
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, that's very funny, but like, what are you trying to get them, other than the fact that you need a comedy career? What are you trying to get them to interpret by that? By
that picture?
Mm-hmm.
The dream that I had about that picture is it's a therapist couch. And I'm just done. I can't even come in and sit.
You can't get all the way there.
I'm going to face plant on the couch, and I just ate some taquitos with extra cheese, and I'm going to be here. I'm here, but I am face planting, and there is just no guarantee that I'll ever get off the couch. I wanted to be real. So many books are fluff and crap and people acting like they have all their shit together. I wanted it to be this unbridled, like authentic, messy, irreverent experience where people read it and they feel comfortable enough to own their own shit. I mean, the subtitle is Finding Gifts in the Midst of Life's Shit. So it's like, oh my gosh, this chick we've all been through shit. We all have pain. We all have a story. I'm not saying mine is more profound than anyone else's, but me sharing it and not holding back, and then sharing the gifts that I uncovered sometimes right after the issue or the trauma, sometimes 20 years later. But letting people know you can also just own the shit. This whole toxic positivity bypass that we do, like, oh, it's all going to be okay. Like, God's in control. I'm too blessed to be stressed. No, we have to give space for these big feelings. And especially if it's trauma, we don't have to sit in it forever, but it's going to keep coming up to be healed. And if we don't do that in a healthy way, it's going to come out sideways, which is not going to be good for anybody.
The photo kind of feels like a visual, like a real human version of something. I'm a kind of a Formula One fan. And there was this one particular race. I think Lewis Hamilton was driving at the time. I'm not 100% sure. But anyway, a tire came off and he comes in to the final lap with one wheel off, on fire, just barely making it across the finish line. And that's kind of like, when I saw that photo, I'm like, it kind of reminds me of that scene, like, oh, I love just kind of like, just coming in hard,
Yeah, you're coming in hot, literally. And that's something that I just connect with that anecdote. Mm-hmm. So stuff like that's all over the book. Mm-hmm. I mean, I love that picture of, I'm going to get to the finish line, but in my case, I'm going to have no wheels and it's just going to be skidding. The car's on fire. Right. I'm inside having a seizure. There's like clowns in the back that are torment. Yeah. Just whatever can go wrong will go wrong. And yet I'm going to get out of that damn car and I'm going to put one foot in front of the other. And I'm probably going to drive again someday. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's how I now interact with life. I used to think life was, why is there this pain, all this suffering? Is it ever going to get better? Life is going to do what life does. And that is that it keeps on lifing. And there is pain and then there's joy. And there's sorrow and joy. It's all inextricably linked. You can't separate them. And there will be good times and bad times. That may be, y'all may just know that. I really didn't. I had to learn that I've got to find a way to find peace when my entire car is on fire and I'm just screeching into the finish line.
Okay. So your original book was The Gift of Pain, in this case. So why don't we talk about, if you're willing, talk about some of the details in the book.
I am so willing.
Okay. So the first one you mentioned was pain. So let's talk about that one. What does a gift of pain mean?
Ooh, man, I love these questions. So that's my favorite chapter.
No.
It's chapter 16. It was the first chapter I wrote, the last chapter in the book, which is interesting. The gift of pain to me was that pain became my greatest teacher. So I had this relationship with pain where I hated how much physical pain I felt in my body for years, 15, 20 years. Constant pain all throughout my body.
Did you ever figure out what it was?
I did, which is a lot of what birthed the book. I had a doctor who just looked at me and said, there is nothing structurally wrong with you. And, all these tests and whatnot. I mean, I have an autoimmune disease, but what I realized was that my chronic pain was unresolved trauma that was trapped in my body. I encourage anyone listening to this to read The Body Keeps the Score. But what I realized was that there was so much unresolved, buried trauma, religious trauma, childhood stuff, being in the closet. I write in the book about 2 separate occasions where I witnessed someone die right in front of me. Just these very intense moments throughout my life. And that was all living in my body. And so I started to get curious about the pain. I didn't try to numb it or, just take a bunch of medicine all the time. Medicine's great. I love it. Took 4 ibuprofen before I got here, got a little headache. But I started to ask the pain to sit down at my table. And I've been fighting you long enough. This was my arch nemesis. And I decided to try to love it and welcome it to the table and be like, look, you're fucking with me. And that's fine. I love you. What do you need to teach me? I'm all ears. And I started to learn from the pain. And the pain unfolded into emotional pain, spiritual pain, psychological pain, pain in all of its forms. The unlocking was the physical pain that I finally realized was tied to this unresolved trauma. So the gift is now when I experience pain, and not just physical, most of the time emotional, I am able to sit with it, get curious about it, feel it fully, and learn something from it that changes the way that I am.
I know this is a bit of a stretch, but when you were somewhere on one of your bios, you were talking about your wealth management stuff, and you said something about finding the pain, your customers' pain points. Mm-hmm. And it kind of struck me as I was looking through all this. Pain takes many different forms. You can have physical pain, like, someone stabs you or something. You can have...
Jeez, that's so aggressive.
I know. Well,
you just went straight to stabbing?
Well, I had someone on my podcast who got stabbed 5 times.
I'm so sorry.
By a serial killer and didn't die. I know, it's a crazy story.
I'm like the lamest guest. Oh my gosh. Okay, keep going.
I wasn't there, but I imagine that hurt a lot.
I'm glad you weren't there, psycho. That'd be weird if you were like, I was actually in the kitchen.
No, and I was not there. Just for the record.
Allegedly.
And then you have sort of what you typically think of as emotional pain, pain of like losing a loved one, for instance. And then you kind of have this sort of kind of daily pain point stuff, like my kid isn't doing their homework, or like my bills are stacking up, or whatever. And it's that stress, and frankly, all of that adds up. It's not just like one pain. It's not like one thing. Like any one of those things I could mention, I could come up with a scenario where people would just be like, I'm done. I'm completely done with life because of this section of pain. I don't care which one we're talking about, despite the fact that they're all very, very different. Mm-hmm. So what is your big takeaway? Is it teaching them how to deal with pain or how to think about pain? Like, what do you want people to get out of that chapter?
I want people to know that the pain that they've experienced and will experience, because that is life, that it can be redeemed. It can mean something. It doesn't mean that the ends justify the means, or that the pain was on purpose to harm you, but that you can give new meaning and new purpose to that pain. And you can find ways to learn from it and start to calibrate your life towards seeing pain with new eyes and redefining the way that you relate to pain and suffering and loss and whatever else causes the pain. Mm-hmm. And I think my greatest hope, most of us get to that point where we're done and we give up. My big thing is don't give up before the miracle. Like it might just be around the corner. You have no idea, but hold on. It's going to pass. It's like a wave. It will come. It will pass. It may take a really long time to be able to get your footing again, but it's not always going to feel this way.
I like the wave analogy. It kind of, I think I've heard a similar kind of thing before with regarding the proximity to a wave. the closer you are to a wave, the more impressive or dominant or scary the thing is. But if you back out, now you're like 100 meters away. It's like, oh, there's some waves over there. If you're 20 miles away, it's just a calm sea.
Dang. Why didn't I put that in the book? That's got to go in the sequel.
There you go.
I love that.
So it's like, yeah, it's happening right now, and you're in the middle of it. You're in the thick of it. You're in the shit of it, right? It's happening. And trying to pretend it's not happening is not really actually helping very much.
It's hurting.
I think there are strategies, but ignoring it is probably not the strategy, because then it's just, as you said, going to score it out in a weird direction, right?
Yep.
But I do think that people spend too much time in proximity to their own pain, and they stop like just accepting the fact that they can back up from it. Like,
yes.
It's like there is an opportunity to get away from this, at least temporarily, where you can get perspective. Mm-hmm. In your case, perspective about losing your religion or losing the organized part of your religion, example. Mm-hmm. I mean, in the thick of it, I'm sure that was horrible. And in fact, I'm not even sure how you lived through it, to be honest. I mean, I think that would normally kneecap most people. But with enough distance, that's a nice glossy pond. I mean, it sucked at the time, and you can remember it, but you're not in it anymore.
Right. And now I look back and it's a fucking water park. Mm-hmm. I'm so grateful. Mm-hmm. I mean, that sounds crazy, but one of my mentors says, I can't tell the difference between a tragedy and a miracle. And I always thought she was crazy. I didn't understand what she meant. And as I start looking back on things that have happened in my life, like, man, that was a tragedy and also a miracle. And both things can be true at the same time. I want to borrow your analogy with the wave. What I find so fascinating is that I wrote this book. I was finished with the content a year ago. Okay. Wrote about a bunch of stuff that has happened in my life, stuff that I was going through at the time when I was writing, but a lot of it's kind of focused on the past. I am in a season right now that is harder than anything I've written about in the book combined. Right now, in this moment, as I sit with you at this table, mm-hmm. I have never experienced the amount of pain that I am experiencing in this season that I'm in. Okay. I will someday, I'm sure, write about it. Today is not that day. Mm-hmm. As I'm recording the Audible book for this, I'm hearing myself read these words that I feel were inspired years ago. And it is giving me, it's like balm to my soul. And I'm in the middle of the ocean in this the biggest wave that I could even dream of, still waiting for the wave to pass. Mm-hmm. It has not passed. It's coming, but I am still actively in it. Yet I'm able to find peace, even though I don't really have the proximity. I'm still in the wave, just getting hammered by the waves, but I have peace. And to me, that is the greatest gift. That I wrote this book, not really for anyone else. I wrote this book to heal. The book was the medicine, but now I need my own book more than ever. And it's there for me. And if there is a way that someone else can read it and their pain can be alleviated just a little bit, then I could die tomorrow and be the happiest person on the planet. Because it will swallow you up if you don't find a way to pause and get some perspective, but also find a way to be peaceful in the midst of it. It's just crazy.
And here you are.
And here I am.
There you are. I mean, you could have easily said no to this interview, and
I think we reached out to you about it. Let's be honest.
I don't think so.
Oh, wow. I feel so special.
No.
Yeah, you said, that would take most people out at the knees, mm-hmm. what you said earlier. This just about destroyed me, the season I'm going through. And I'm grateful to be here because it gets me out of my head, and it just gets me out of those constant waves that keep crashing. But I know because of what I've been through, and now I've reframed the way I deal with pain, I'm in the midst of this shit right now, and I'm already moving through it differently. Like, that is blowing my mind.
So one of the other types of pain that I think a lot of people feel, and it sounds like, at least in part of your life, this was one of those types of pain you felt, was shame.
Oh, yeah.
The pain of shame. And I've spent a lot of time thinking about this particular topic, the pain of shame, because it is used to weaponize people. Foreign governments use it to find people who are, ashamed of their, infidelities or for their drug use or the proclivities or whatever, right? So they'll leverage these things against them. So I've always been thinking about on the defensive side, like how do you shift or how do you change it to being either not shameful or removing the blast radius of the shame, right? Brene Brown probably has the best I've seen so far, which is just
always
just
on shame.
Well, I mean, I think unfortunately, it doesn't work all the time. So I'm not saying she's like got it, but she definitely has a really good, at least starter kit for people who have kind of like that, softball shame. And I'm not saying that your shame is softball in the strictest sense because it was important to you, but it's not like I raped like 20 people last year or I, killed somebody or something. Not that kind of shame, right? That kind of shame. You can't just detonate the blast radius by being vulnerable. You can't just say, "Hi, I killed a whole bunch of people last year, anonymous," or something. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't.
I don't think that would really land the same.
Yes. So there's a type of shame that unfortunately that has absolutely no benefit for, and society is not bettered by. But for the vast majority of shame, like people feel shame for all kinds of things. Like I gained a little weight. Who cares? Like, I mean, really, who cares? Like it doesn't matter. You should probably work on that just for your own health, but like no one should care exactly, or, I like somebody or something. It's like, like you're like whoever you want, who cares? It's like, it doesn't affect anyone else, et cetera. Right. There's a whole bunch of versions of this. But it is indeed a real pain, like so real people will kill themselves over it.
Yes.
And that is as real a pain as a pain exists.
Mm-hmm.
And so, how do you look at that as a gift? How do you turn that upside down?
This might be my favorite question.
All right.
I kind of have an obsession with shame and guilt. So I see shame and guilt as, and I write about it. I write about them as the dastardly duo. I don't think there's ever shame without guilt. There's never guilt without shame. I don't have this backed up by research. Brene Brown might disagree. She's my hero. I love her. I would literally lose my shit if I ever met her. But she knows all the things about shame. What I have realized about shame, and this has blown my mind and really blown the top off of how I think about things. I have struggled for so long with different patterns. I write about the gift of addiction in the book. And what I've come to realize is that it's not really about the patterns that I'm shameful of. It's not even about those patterns or that thing I have shame about. It's the fact that the shame and guilt are pouring lighter fluid on the pattern. So we're not repeating the pattern because of this addiction. Typically, we continue doing what we hate, what we feel ashamed of, because we are drowning in shame and guilt about the thing. And so instead of hyper focusing on whatever the pattern is or whatever the thing is that we're so shameful about, the antidote is self-forgiveness and self-love and radical self-love and acceptance. And then once you start taking that power away from shame and guilt, and they're always on the sidelines doing push-ups, just waiting to be, called back into action. It's that guilt and shame that is pouring lighter fluid on whatever that thing is that we're trying to break free from, an addiction we're trying to break free from. So the gift is, instead of trying to pretend the shame doesn't exist or fight it or numb it, what do? I'm inviting it to the table. Guilt and shame, pull up a chair. Let's have a glass of wine. and I look them straight in the eyes as if they're like embodied people. And now when I notice shame and guilt creeping in, I no longer try to run from it, hide from it, fight it, whatever. I sit with it. I get curious about it, and then I speak my truth. I don't have anything to be ashamed of. I'm not perfect, but in this situation, I did the best that I could with the tools I had at the time. And so I've been able to take my power back over shame and guilt, and it comes from self-forgiveness. I talk in the book about this Hawaiian prayer. It has a really weird name, and I'm probably going to screw it up. Ho'oponopono, something like that. I call it the age prayer.
I'm not going to try to correct you.
Please don't. I call it the Pono prayer, and it's a prayer of self-forgiveness. And it's just letting ourselves off the hook, loving ourselves, finding those dark parts of ourselves, and trying to envelop them with love and light. As weird as that sounds, as esoteric as that sounds, once I started loving myself and forgiving myself of the guilt and shame I felt about X, Y, and Z, it changed everything.
So you mentioned addiction. What it sounds like you're saying something, but it wasn't clear what that something was. What kind of addiction are you referring to?
I think just in general addiction. So I write a little bit about
like drugs or
drugs, alcohol,
substances in particular.
Real Housewives of all the cities.
All right. Any kind of addiction.
Watching that, any addiction.
Okay.
For me, I do get very vulnerable, and I write about my own personal struggles with addiction and where they come from. And I write about my friend Patty, who has this addiction to cheese. I thought I was addicted to cheese. Patty, she takes the cake. And it's because she grew up in this abusive household, and her older brother was very abusive toward her. She would go and cry to her mom, and her mom would say, "Oh, Patty, just go eat some cheese. Just go eat some cheese. That'll make everything better," which is true. It makes everything better temporarily, like a good Gouda.
Until
you know what
get
I mean?
More cheese.
And then you get more cheese, and then you have diabetes, and then it's a whole thing. But now she's this amazing high-functioning adult, has done a ton of work, healing work, help, personal development. Yet every time she gets stressed or she experiences pain, she is just handful of, Mexican shredded cheese from the grocery store.
What?
So it's really interesting.
It's not good cheese then. It's just whatever cheese you got.
Look, I love me some shredded Mexican cheese from H-E-B. But she keeps doing it because she has so much guilt and shame about the fact that she's doing that. And so it's just been really interesting to watch her walk through her own journey of forgiving herself of the guilt and shame she feels about being addicted to cheese, as one example.
I bet she throws great wine and cheese parties, though.
Oh my gosh, I bet so. I want to go to those.
All right. So what about conflict? What does the gift of conflict give somebody? Like, what am going to get out of being in an internet fight with a troll or whatever?
Oh my gosh. Oh,
you've been in plenty of those. So.
Yeah, I don't tend to write back though. I'm just like, what's the point? I don't even want to waste my breath. I don't think I'm going to change anybody's mind. No, I'm just like, I'm busy. I would rather watch Real Housewives.
I spent so much time writing those though.
You asshole. You're asshole 1, 2, 3. That's hilarious. Man, I should have known. So the whole theme about conflict, this was a tough one. And as I was writing the book, it was when everything started happening with Russia and Ukraine, and talk about massive conflict in the country, us being more divided than we ever have been. And I've always been really focused on how do we find peace, right? How do we get these opposing factions to come to an agreement? I love peace. I love making peace. And I was just hitting my head against the wall, working with John, my mentor at the time. And it was really, I first heard this from him, and he said, the magic is in harmonizing the polarizing opposites within you. So we are all this dark and light within us. We have the yin and yang within each of us. I had been so much time and energy and attention out there with conflict, or me having conflict with another person, that I abandoned that temporarily, and I turned inward, and I tried to find and locate the dark and light within my own self. So if it's, I think something that is really hard to admit is privilege, and how even though I would consider myself an anti-racist, I still have embedded racism within me just because of how I operate in the world, being a white woman, having privilege. So instead of fighting this, racism and everything that was happening with George Floyd, where can I find that in me and start to heal those parts of me that are dark? Where can I find the yin and the yang within me? And instead of fighting against it like this, I started setting an intention to where the polarizing opposites within my own self would be harmonized, and they would come together, and they would align, and they would learn to play nice in the sandbox. So I started getting right size internally, and that changed everything about the people I was having conflict with, or how I was interacting with conflict. So for me, the gift in that situation was loving the darkness in me, which sounds crazy, but admitting that I do have a dark side, and that's okay too. I'm not all bubbles and rainbows.
How does this help you with an actual conflict though? So let's say you're actually in it with somebody, Real Housewives, people are flipping tables or whatever. How does that benefit you? Why is that a gift?
Having conflict with someone else?
Yeah. Or, having had conflict with someone in the past. I'm not saying go out and start a fist fight exactly,
right? But we could.
But it already happened. Well, I can do it.
I know. I'm scared of you now. You're like there when people get stabbed. You're just sitting there in the kitchen.
It was in the bedroom.
So creepy.
No, that's where the story happened.
Oh, it's like you don't have to be in the bedroom.
Well, this particular one, he was in the bedroom.
I don't want to know. Don't tell me, because I'm going to have nightmares.
He did get the knife from the kitchen, though. You're right.
Oh my God, that's so terrifying. Yes. Okay. Now I have a visual, and I'm really going to try to regroup. Like, what were we talking? Conflict with other people. Okay. Yes. So I am in the midst of the biggest conflict with another human, which ties into what I was speaking about earlier. Mm-hmm. Do I find the gift in that conflict right now? No. And I think there's power in saying there's maybe not a gift in everything. My kid asked me, Mama, is there a gift in every trauma? And I just said, no. How can I say yes? I have no idea.
But isn't there? Isn't there?
Maybe. I hope so. I have no idea. I don't have enough data.
But here's the problem. You don't have enough data. So give yourself another year, and life's going to look a lot different.
It will. You're totally right.
That's the distance I'm talking about.
I love it. And I'm going to get there. And it'll be more than a year.
Or whatever,
Hopefully.
20, 50 years. You're gonna be looking back at some point and go, it was not good. Like all these things that happened to us at the moment, not good.
Yeah.
At the time, but now this amazing thing happened afterwards, and
right.
But
I will say, the gift with experiencing this conflict, being aware of what's coming up for me as I'm triggered, never waste a trigger. So the gift of conflict is that there's a reason that it's triggering you. There's a reason that something's making you angry, that you're having conflict with this other person. What is it in them that you absolutely hate? And I spend time trying to find that very thing in me. And if I can locate it, I try to identify it. And then I try to send some love to it, forgive myself for the guilt and shame I feel about that. So it's become this exercise in awareness when I want to rip someone's head off.
Yes. But if you think about, comedy is a great example. You can turn any tragedy into at least a joke someone's going to laugh at.
Thank God.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So you can yes, it's horrible. In fact, the more horrible it is now, the funnier it will be eventually.
Oh, yeah. I'm already working on my bit for all this shit.
Right? That's what I'm saying. So this might be a gift. This might actually be something fantastic for you down you're not there yet. You've got a lot of trials and tribulations between here and there to earn the gift, because you have to earn the gift, right? doesn't just come to you. You just don't get it naturally. You have to actually work for it.
I agree and I disagree.
Okay. Does it come for free? You get it just naturally?
It's not free, but you don't have to work for it. A lot of the gifts I write about, I didn't do any work for. I just did a lot of fucking pain and I did a lot of grieving. So if by that you mean work.
That's work.
It is. It totally is.
That's work.
I mean more, I don't feel like I had to earn it. But it took a lot of shit to get there.
Well, the grieving, I think, is work. If you're that's kind of what I mean by it. You had to sit through your own pain, and that's hard. It's hard. It's hard work.
Yep, I totally agree.
It's draining on your body.
It's the worst.
It's actually as hard as doing a hard workout. Like, you just feel horrible afterwards in the same way the worst workout, you know?
That's why I don't work out, because it's just, I'm just emotionally working out, so I don't need all that cardio.
I remember reading somewhere that chess players burn something crazy, like 3,000 calories per game, like
sitting on their butts?
Yeah, just sitting there. And that's why a lot of them are very, very thin, is their brain is just pumping, you know, constantly working very, very hard. I'm like, is that a great workout routine? I don't have to move.
I'm like, that's rude. My brain works very hard, and I have yet to
chess champion hard, apparently.
No, I don't even know. I've never played chess. I'm terrified of it, honestly.
Well, it's an interesting one. It's a gift. We can teach you how to learn.
Well, I love how you're saying, you know, eventually you will find the gift. When I realized that this book had changed me, writing it had changed me, and I do not say that lightly. I can't unsee what I've seen. Like, I feel like I have new eyes. As I was going through it, and still am, I have already seen so many gifts. I don't even feel like I have to wait a year and look back on it. There are active gifts happening, being uncovered in real time. And that gives me the strength to get up the next morning and do the day again and try again and do one foot in front of the other and keep showing up.
Because this gave you the right tools.
Yeah.
Did it speed up the process? Do you think you would have gotten there anyway? Or is it you just literally didn't have the tools before? There was no way to get out of that without these tools.
Gosh, it just feels like yes, both, all of it.
Okay.
But I either didn't have the right tools or all of my tools were broken. Like, I had the knife, but it was dull, right? So I'm just like, I'll just throw the knife out. So in writing the book and then just the process of creating, and now it's this thing I can touch and feel. I only touched this for the first time a few days ago. It was like the best.
I touched it like 10 minutes ago.
Feeling ever. I know.
Wait, an hour and a half, I guess.
I know. I feel like, oh my God, this is my book baby. She's here and she's going to, spread her wings and fly. It honed the tools. It was like I got a whole new toolbox, and I'm still learning. I mean, I'm just baby crawling into this, but I am approaching this difficult season in a way I've never approached pain or trauma.
I mean, if I didn't know what you're going through, you're like almost excited by it.
I'm terrified.
I know better, but
yeah,
it seems like when you talk, you're actually excited that you actually have the tools now. Like,
yes,
it's not going to be easy, but at least there's something to hang your hat on, and
yes.
You know what's coming, you know what's difficult, you know how to work around it or whatever. I don't know the right way to phrase that exactly.
Or work through it.
Yeah.
It reminds me of, so I had really bad sinuses and would get sick all the time. So I had that sinus surgery, deviated septum. I don't know. Everyone thought I was getting a nose job. I'm like, I love my nose. Why would I get a nose job? And I remember they took the stents out of my nose in my follow-up appointment after surgery, and they took them out, and I breathed in, and they told me, they said, it's going to be dramatic when you breathe in because you've never breathed like this before. And I remember breathing in, it was overwhelming because I was just consuming all this oxygen, and I felt like I was breathing for the first time. That is how this season is going for me. Even though I still had pain after that surgery, I am actively in the pain and breathing deeper than I ever have. And, you know, for me, divorce is a part of what I'm going through, and can't go into much detail, you know, for legal reasons. But every day I wake up and I know that there's probably going to be something waiting for me that is difficult. And things have just been, you know, kind of imploding and whatever. I don't want to get too deep into it, but the excitement that you're sensing is because I am walking on solid ground. I feel peace in the midst of the shit show. I'm in the depth of the valley, but instead of looking up and begging, you know, God, universe, source, XYZ, get me out of this valley, what's happened is that they are joining me in the valley and sitting with me in the valley. And I don't have to stay in it, but I'm going to stay here as long as I can to learn whatever lesson I have to learn. But for me, it's just about getting closer to myself, my higher power. And I'm changing in real time. It's just a really bizarre.
It's kind of cool.
It's bizarre. It is cool.
I mean,
it's just really
all the
weird.
Badness aside, it's actually kind of cool.
Thank God, because otherwise I think I'd just be like, fuck it. Seriously.
Let's not do that.
No, I can't. I got these kids depending on me.
I know. Your story about the deviated septum reminds me of another thing. You can find some videos of this online of people who are putting on glasses for the very first time and seeing
the babies.
For the very first time, they're seeing color.
Oh my
They've
gosh.
never been able to see color before. Like, they'll just immediately break down and crying. Like, immediately. Like, most of the time.
Yeah.
Because they never knew that there was this whole other thing out there. And that's what these tools kind of remind me of. Like, if you're always looking in the gray, you only see the gray, life can be pretty easy to say, fuck it. You can be pretty nihilistic about the whole thing.
Yep.
But if you suddenly see color, like, whoa, there's this whole other way to live my life. There's this whole other way to think about things and interact with my surroundings and the people in my life. Maybe it's not all gray, but you can't tell that to somebody who's never seen anything other than gray. I mean, other than just like, hey, there's some hope around the corner. Like, yeah, sure. I've seen.
Yeah, fuck off.
Yeah, right. I've seen gray. There's more gray. Yeah, I've seen plenty of gray. It's hard to explain to somebody who's never encountered the other side.
It is. And I wish I could have written down what you just said, but
thankfully we have it on.
This is being filmed. This is being recorded. I had no idea. Wish I would have worn my hair down so I could
just follow you around the cameras all day.
Right? Thank you. Please don't. Yeah, it's. I really hope that people will get the book, and not because I'm trying to sell books. I mean, sure, that'd be great if I sold books. But for me, it's about having that moment of the little kid putting on the glasses and it going viral. Someone hearing for the first time. I think the greatest compliment I've gotten so far from the people who have read the book, I had a group of, they got advanced reader copies to write a review or whatever. And it's one of my dear friends, and she said, I cannot see anything the same since reading the book.
Wow.
I don't see pain the same. I don't see loss, conflict, heartache, unanswered prayers, whatever, fill in the blank. She's like, I can't unsee with these new eyes. And that's the goal. I don't care if I sell 2 copies. If those 2 people are able to interact with the pain that life throws at you and will keep throwing at you, if those people can see pain with new eyes and it can alleviate their burden a little bit, and maybe the little twinkle will come back in their eye, which is terrifying because we also fear joy. Brene talks about fearing joy because we're scared to get our hopes up. We're scared to feel joy because we know that the shoe's going to drop any day now. And that's life. And when it does.
And it does, is
and
the
it
thing.
does.
So it's confirmation. It's like, well, see, look,
yeah,
my joy's over.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Except when the joy comes back, we never say, see, look, life does have joy. Mm-hmm. We just focus on all the bad shit. So, oh man, I'm so excited about it.
That's great. We could keep talking about the book, but I feel like if we talk too much about the individual chapters, you're going to not have enough for the audience to really grab a hold on their own. So I don't want to do that, but I would like to talk about the structure of the book because I had not seen it until literally an hour and a half ago. There's a bunch going on. It's not just chapters. So you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes. The book is like my brain. So my, which could be a good or bad thing. I'm not a linear thinker. So even as I was creating the table of contents, it was like Rain Man meets A Beautiful Mind. And I had this huge whiteboard and there was just stuff all over it. And I'm starting to build this, framework and building the puzzle, getting the end pieces, starting to fill in the puzzle. And it is deep, it's dense. It's also filled with humor because humor is so healing. But like I was saying earlier,
practice your act too.
That's right. I gotta test my jokes. But it is it's a journey through. It's split into 3 different parts. It's not a memoir because I was told you're not famous. You can't do a memoir. Nobody cares. Nobody knows you. So it's memoir light with personal development, that sort of thing. 3 parts moving through childhood, growing up, coming out, my first divorce, adoption. I mean, it's just packed with everything into 3 parts. And then you've got the songs throughout the book, the coloring pages throughout the book.
Explain the songs part because that won't be clear if you've not seen the book.
Yeah. So at the end of every chapter, there is a QR code that's on the page, right next to the coloring book. So the idea is that the reader will open their phone, go to that QR code, and then listen to the song. And it's one of my original songs. That will drive home whatever concept is in that chapter that they read.
Mm-hmm. So it's kind of multimodal environment sort of thing. So I'm reading it, I'm digesting it, I'm coloring, I'm listening, just trying to think about. I think the coloring thing is an interesting thing because I am not a big colorer. I'll be honest.
You're lost.
Yeah, it's true. I think I never liked the texture of crayons.
Gross.
That's probably the
I
reason.
hate Thank you.
Yeah.
I hate the texture of crayons. The smell, it's the worst. I never do crayons.
Yeah, and even the scratch and sift ones, I'm like, ugh, no.
Ew, gross.
So I never got into it, but I do like the idea of slowing down. And so when people go through the book, and they're like, they kind of want to get to the next chapter, but
don't do it.
You shouldn't.
Don't do it.
Actually, this is one of those things where it's like, okay, now it's time to stop. Don't go to the next chapter. Spend some time on this page, maybe 10 minutes, maybe an hour, whatever, and at least think about how this relates to you in your life and listen to the song or whatever, just kind of get in the groove. And I think there's something kind of very interesting about that.
Yes. And at the end of each chapter, I have a break it down for me, which is like, Cliff's Notes, right? Takeaways, journal prompts. I give challenges throughout the book. So it's very interactive. And I want to tell people, I keep saying it's dense because this is not just a book you randomly pick up and read in one day at a beach. This is going to bring up some stuff. And I say in the introduction, if you start a chapter and it's just too much, let's say you're reading The Gift of Loss and you just lost your child. Don't read The Gift of Loss. Move on to the next chapter. Maybe it's not the right time.
Interesting. Really?
But each chapter.
Why is that? Give me some context.
Well, I think that if you're too close, like you talked about the proximity of pain, it is not the right timing. It won't land, or it will maybe cause more damage because of the timing when you're reading it. And so each chapter can be a standalone chapter. it's better if you read it, from cover to cover, just from a standpoint of continuity of my story. But it's okay if somebody needs to skip a chapter because of something they're going through in real time. Or I write about abuse or an abusive marriage or, trauma. Somebody might have just experienced trauma yesterday. That might not be the right time, but I have to trust the reader will know if they pick up a chapter and it's too much. It's okay to go back to it at a different time.
Mm-hmm. So when since you mentioned loss, it's one of the things I was going to talk about, but I don't want to hijack your book too much.
Hijack away.
No, I don't really want to do that because I think there's some really interesting stuff in there and I want to read it myself. But loss is kind of an interesting one to me because I've had some losses fairly recently, as a matter of fact. And one book that was, I thought quite good was The Obstacle Was the Way. I don't know if you've ever read it or not. It is an incredibly good book.
That sounds very familiar. Is that Ryan Holiday?
Yes.
Oh, yes. Okay.
It's a book on Stoicism, but it was basically turning, it's sort of, the best way I can kind of describe it, it's sort of like mental jujitsu or something, or Aikido actually, as opposed to jujitsu. Jujitsu is you grapple. Aikido is you kind of get everything off balance and move it to the side. It's meant for sword fighting, more or less.
How do you know this shit?
Don't ask me. I don't know.
It's meant for sword fighting. Like, that's just a thing people know. Nobody knows that but you. That's awesome.
Unarmed sword fighting, as a matter of fact.
I love swords.
I know, they're kind of cool. But that's kinjutsu. That's a bit of a different martial art. But anyway, so when you're trying to disarm somebody, you can't be online with them. If they're throwing a sword at you, you can't just put your hands up. They'll kill you, right? Mm-hmm. So you kind of have to get offline and kind of redirect their energy and move them. And it's not a very useful martial art from today's standpoint. Steven Seagal was an expert in it. But imagine you could do that with life. Like, so something's coming at you. You cannot stop this thunderous thing that's moving straight at you, or you shouldn't, right? You shouldn't. It's probably oftentimes the case. Like, it's any attempt you make to stop it, you're just going to get crushed, right?
Yes.
So you got to get out of the way. But that's not to say you can't use it. You can't use the energy that it's got a lot of energy. It is moving fast. It's disruptive. It's changing your life. You can get out of line from it slightly and help move it in a direction that's very beneficial to you. Whether it be, writing a book on the topic or, starting a nonprofit, which is something I've been doing, or, finding, some people who are like-minded and suddenly you've got a new group of friends that you never knew existed. Like, there's this whole other thing you get out of having this trauma moving at you super, super fast. So that book in particular was quite helpful because, I don't think I'd ever heard it described quite in that way. I mean, I'm paraphrasing dramatically.
No, I love the book. I read it a while ago, but it makes me think I need to read it again.
Yeah, because it almost doesn't matter how bad the trauma or bad thing is. There is some hard-earned, I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I'm not going to say it's going to be fun, but there's some hard-earned and very valuable upside to be gained on almost any terrible thing you can possibly imagine. Truly, almost anything.
Yes.
And you may not see it at the time, and it's mostly, I think it's an artifact of the fact that people generally cannot get outside of their own body at the moment. Yep. They can't see into the future. They can't see beyond their current situation. But if you could step back and you could go, imagine what life will be like in 6 months, a year, or whatever. How could you use this? How could this be your tool and help you? And when you reframe life in that way, I don't do it on a day-to-day basis. I mean, I'm not looking at every single thing as a way to turn around and make it mine or something. But those really big tragic moments, when something really bad happens, I found it extremely helpful to reframe it as yes, it sucks, sure. And there's no denying it sucks. Like, there's no point in pretending it doesn't suck. But, and this isn't necessarily toxic, but it's like, suck it up to the point where, you make this your own. You know, like there's this whole extra half of that sentence. Like, yeah, you can suck it up. Yeah. Yeah. And everyone doesn't want to do it. It's like, yeah, but just enough to visualize where you're going to be in 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years, whatever. And this will be your tool. This will be something that you own.
I love that.
And no one can take it from you. It's yours.
Yep. And it just makes it makes it a little easier to swallow all the shit whenever you have that North Star of what is possible. I'm going through this now. What is possible on the other side of this? And
the only mistake you can make is not thinking about how awesome a gift this is going to be in the future.
Yeah.
Because the longer you wait is basically, you're just delaying how painful this actually is.
Yep. That's a tough one. That's hard. You know, I think about the people, I really worried about a certain type of person that would read the book. And I still worry about it. And it's the person who has been so deeply wronged. Like, think of the worst thing that could possibly happen to you. And imagine that happening to you. And you hearing someone say that there's going to be something great that comes from this.
Yeah.
That's my fear, is that I would turn those people off. And those are the people I want to reach the most.
See, this is why I like his take on this. It's not that there will be something great. What will be great? What could be great?
Like, what if? Opportunities, possibilities.
Like, what the hell do I know about your problem? I have no idea what's going on in your life and your problem. But can you imagine that there is a world in which there's a future where you could theoretically take advantage of the hardship and not necessarily like fully turn the train around? The train's already kind of going by, right?
It's the train has flattened you.
Yeah, or hopefully not fully flattened you, but you know, but it is maybe winged you.
Yeah.
But you know, to use that again, tortured analogy, maybe the fact that I'm handicapped in some way is an advantage. Maybe I can use it in some cool ways and, you know, go on tour and talk about what it's like to get hit by trains and, you know, sue the train manufacturer and own the train.
A TED Talk. I can see it now.
But I guess what I'm getting at is there's a subtle reframing as opposed to saying it will be better. You know, I don't know it's going to be better. Yeah. And it actually might be worse because you may not do anything to protect yourself.
And you may keep doing this over and over again because you don't learn the lesson,
right?
In some cases.
Yeah, for sure. So rather than me telling you it will be okay, just saying there's an opportunity for it to be okay. So what does that opportunity look like? And it gets your imagination as the victim or whatever of this terrible situation to reframe a possibility, whatever that possibility is for you.
I love that. I'm holding on to that like you're my lifeline because that's what I'm in the middle of the trauma and the different pockets of grief. And I'll have these grief bursts and then I'll feel great. And I'm like, I'm strong. I got this. And then a grief burst. But in between those moments, I am dreaming of how this particular valley can be redeemed. And someday I'll be able to join someone else in their valley and put my arm around them and be like, look, I don't know how you feel, but I can relate in my own way. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry that happened to you. You didn't deserve it. Let me share a little bit about where I am now on the other side of it. And that would just mean so much to me to be able to help just one other person that may be going through something similar.
I think you will.
I hope so.
I think you will. I mean, you said a couple things already that I think are very useful for people who don't fully understand. I mean, thinking of the upside of the bad thing is not a common thought. I mean, most people are just really just mired down. They're in a swamp. They're just getting sucked down by this thing and they'll let it, or they're struggling against it, but they're struggling the wrong ways. You know, they're reaching out to the wrong types of people in some cases, or they're searching for drugs or alcohol to suppress it. I mean, you're just basically spiraling down this.
Yes. Just overwhelmed, completely stuck.
Or choosing things that will not help them.
Yes.
They will not give them any sort of upside.
Right.
I see this happen a lot with people with PTSD. They just, drugs and alcohol. That's it. That just numb the pain, but that doesn't really numb the pain.
Not at all.
That's not what's doing. That's not what's happening.
Nope.
You're actually adding another problem.
Yeah.
Now you have two problems instead of one problem.
It's infusing more into the pain.
Yeah, exactly. So why even think about those as options? But people just can't see that there's other options. And so I think you're talking about something that could be very, very useful for a lot of people.
I hope so.
Me too.
Even if it's just my kids. They'll read that someday, and hopefully that'll be my legacy. And, if it's just them, that's all good.
I think you'll help.
I like how she framed it. Don't give up before the miracle. That was a nice thing.
Yeah, I agree. If you you're going down a dark alley. You're just going, right? Here's all these metaphors.
I'm the metaphor queen. Like, I am here for all the metaphors.
I'm sorry, Your Highness. I did not know.
Bow down, motherfucker.
So we're going through this dark alley, and it's like, wow, this is really, really, really terrible. And then you realize, oh, there's the nightclub. You know what I mean? Oh, yeah, I was down this dark alley. They intentionally hid it away. They didn't want people to know about it. It's like, there's the miracle. Like you're in this really terrible situation. Like, oh, I'm going to get robbed. I'm going to get mugged. This is a really sketchy neighborhood, blah, blah, blah. No, there's a speakeasy at the end of this thing. Oh, it's amazing. This is great. I know, right? I think that's how the entire world is kind of instinctually aware of that, but not necessarily like academically or logically aware of it. Like, you always know that there's something around the corner. Like, there's something around the corner. Is there a person? You stop and kind of slow down before you go around the corner, because there might be something you don't expect around that corner. You slow down. You're like, oh, okay, it's clear. Or, oh, there's clowns. I'm glad I slowed down.
I hate clowns.
I don't know what clowns did to you, but all right.
That's for the next book.
So I think he's right. I think JC's right. I think there's something kind of cool about saying that you just don't know. How could you know? You can't see in the future.
You can't know.
Even the best predictors in the world doing the best kinds of prediction are rarely right. There's slightly better odds than going to Vegas, but not much better than that.
Yep. I sat down I have this beautiful green piano in my house, and I painted it green. Yep. I painted it green. I wanted a green piano.
Okay.
I painted a piano green.
What
it's my
color?
Favorite thing.
Like forest green or like lime green?
It's not lime green. Like a deep Kelly green, like a rich green that would go with a nice gold mirror.
Okay.
Okay. Maybe some gold accent pillows on the couch. And
I like that.
This song I actually wrote in my head. I got the chorus when I was, I love Al-Anon. I've been in Al-Anon for 9 years. I was in an Al-Anon meeting, and someone said, just don't give up before the miracle. And I started writing the song in my head, which happens quite a bit. So I go home that night, I sit down at the piano, and this song is in the book. And it's I think I've written over, 150 songs. This is probably my favorite song. And I originally wrote it for other people, but then I was singing it recently, and again, I was singing it to myself. It was like I was having an out-of-body experience listening to myself sing this song, and I wasn't going to do this because it feels awkward to just sing with no piano or guitar, but hold on, don't give up before the miracle. The miracle. Hold on, don't give in before you see the line that I'm throwing out to you. And as I was singing it, I started singing, whoa, whoa, whoa. It's like pounding on the piano. Whoa, whoa. And I'm in the living room, and I just start belting. This is not the end of your story. And I'm not going to belt because I would break the microphone off, but I just kept saying that. I have goosebumps all over it, which doesn't happen a lot. This is not the end of your story, but only the beginning. So hold on. I mean, that's it. That's it for me. And that's when I was like, okay, we're going to face this head on. I'm not giving up. I'm going to put one foot in front of the other. And I don't know. That's just the thing. There's nothing more I can say about it. So I hope somebody watching this or listening, if you're on your last leg, there's one more little card in the house of cards that's just about to, and it's all over. Or maybe you're staring and all your cards have already collapsed. Try to keep holding on just even a little bit longer.
Amen.
Amen. We did kind of go to church.
We sure did.
You were dropping some truth bombs on me. I hate that I wasn't taking notes.
Oh, wow.
Oh, but it's recorded.
It's all recorded.
So I can go back.
Yes. And we can get extra recordings on top of the recordings.
Yes.
I like to record us while we're recording.
Yes. Just don't say anything about clowns. No more things about clowns.
No, that's 2 times too many. So I know this has been a multi-year project. What was the editing process looking like? What was that?
It was so mean.
That cannot have been easy. That's actually the reason I hate writing. The reason. There's everything. I love everything about writing. I hate editing.
Oh my gosh. Thank God for my editing team. It went through 262,000 words. It went through 6 layers of editing and it took a year. So when I say, this has been a labor of love. I had to kill so many of my darlings, so many stories I loved, so many things I wrote that I was so excited about. And it was, you got 3 stories, pick one. It was like, it's like choosing which kid to throw into the river, right? So that was arduous.
Out with the bathwater.
Exactly. This poor baby. Man, that was really hard. But I trusted the people that I partnered with. And so when they said, this whole part's got to go, instead of fighting or having ego, I thought, y'all are the experts. I don't know anything about writing a book. Okay. I just showed up and started doing it, and somehow it's here, and it blows my mind to this day. But that was the hardest part, was having to take out so much content that really meant so much to me. But I knew in that moment, that was just the content that I wrote for me. That was just a special healing content. It didn't make it in the final book, and that's okay. None of it was wasted. It was hard.
Not to soothsay in any way. Are you thinking about writing another book down the road?
100%.
You're going to take some of those anecdotes that didn't make
I've already started.
Yeah, I bet you have.
So I'm doing the process now, which I was doing 4 and 5 years ago, which is just.
And is that going to make it easier since you more or less have it written? You're just now got to craft it, or is it a whole nother 3 years from now?
Oh, it will be a whole nother 3 years from now, just because of there's only so much time in the day. It's like working full time, having these kids that have all their needs.
Get them adopted.
Right? Well, they are adopted, so it's like there's not like a secondary adoption. Exactly. Kids, I don't mean that. I love slate. You. No, they can't listen to this because I have been saying so many F-bombs.
Oh.
No, for sure.
We'll bleep it out.
Thank you. You'd have to bleep out a lot.
We won't.
Thank goodness. Cussing is a part of my character.
Yeah.
I've already started writing the next book. Where I'm starting is not where it's going to end. So that's the exciting part, is that I have no idea where that path will take me, but it will be powerful, and it will be a lot about what I'm going through right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, that should be very interesting.
So I'll be back in 4 years to do your show again.
3 years, right? 3 years.
Maybe I could do one every 3 years.
Sure.
That feels so hard. Okay, I can do it.
You can do it.
I believe in myself.
You just have to drop everything in,
Yeah.
Quit your job and.
Yeah, which is fine. Just be homeless, but you can write under the bridge.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, okay. So why don't we talk about where to get it? So I think this will come out in 2 weeks. So this might actually be out by the time
Yay.
a guy like me. And so how do people get it? So how do they interact with you? How do they reach out to you? All that stuff.
Okay. So where to get it? Pretty much, barnesandnoble.com, Amazon, wherever you buy books.
Mm-hmm.
I think the best place to get it, if I could direct people of where to get it, would be on Amazon. Order the book on Amazon. It comes in Kindle. The Audible will be available wherever Audible is available.
Was that a tough process?
Oh my gosh, that was that was really freaking hard because I was reading content I wrote quite a while ago, which it has not aged well, given what I'm going through today. Mm-hmm. And so that was difficult. And I did it in my closet, which I thought was so fun.
Did you get emotional while you were doing it?
Yes. And there was one part in the Audible where I didn't stop recording. I just wanted to let the emotion be there. I was able to finish saying whatever I was saying, but I didn't want to take that out of it. So, I left that in there.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was really fun.
It's kind of rare to hear an author actually get emotional in their own works. I've listened to a lot of audibles, so I
do too. I love them, and I didn't care. This is
how does it translate out of curiosity? Do you play the songs, or how does that work?
Yeah, so the songs are imported right into Audible, so cool. It just comes up. You miss the coloring book pages.
Yeah, obviously.
Which is sad, but there's a way to download that as well. Mm-hmm. The whole adult coloring book is available on the website, notanotherselfhelpbook.com. But what was your question? I just literally flew out of my head.
How do they get in touch with you?
Okay, how do they get in touch with me? So I would love if y'all would go to the website, notanotherselfhelpbook.com, and put your little email address in there, because then I can interact with you. If Instagram goes away, if Facebook goes away, social media is over as we know it. At least I, have this group of people that I can connect with. Social media, Lindsey Kane Leaverton on Instagram, Facebook. Just, I don't know. You'll probably put links or something.
Yeah, sure. You're having a book release, although no one will be able to watch it go there because this will come out, I think, slightly too late. But at the Brentwood Social House.
Yes, I'm so excited.
116, which I will be there for.
I am so grateful that you're coming.
Yes. So normally I have authors sign the books here. So we're going to have to figure out whether we sign it here or there, but
Ooh, we're going to have to sign it there only because this is the copy I owe my mom.
Yeah, okay.
I didn't get a lot of physical copies.
I kind of suspected I wasn't going to get this one, but
my mind could possibly be changed.
No, I'm not going to make you do that. I'm going to see you in a week or two anyway.
That's true.
However long it is, 16.
I'm so excited. I'm going to do a reading from the book. We're going to do some Q&A. I'm going to sing 2 songs.
Oh, that's cool.
I'm very excited about that.
Are people going to color during it, or?
You know what? It's so funny that you said that. I'm going to have printouts of the actual coloring book.
No crayons.
No. Crayons are from the very pit of hell. And colored pencils. They can all go fuck all the way off. I guarantee you, try to color with colorful pens. It will change your whole life about that. Okay. But the RSVP list, we're getting close to breaking fire code. I wanted to invite everyone. This is one of the biggest days of my life. If I've ever even known you remotely, I'm please come out. Well, I didn't think really people would come. Right. And so hopefully we'll break fire code and it'll be a huge success.
And people perish in fire, I guess.
Yeah, which is fine. It's a whole theme. The fire, the car on fire,
yes.
The venue on fire.
Sounds wonderful. All right. Well, Lindsey, I had a lot of fun.
I did too. Thank you for hanging out with me.
Yes. Congratulations on your book. And I hope to see you on stage at the comedy club one of these days.
Oh my gosh. Someday.
I'm so excited.
You heard it here first.
All right. We'll work on the software together.
Yes. I still don't even know what it means, but S and K. I like it. Thank you. Yeah. You're awesome. And thanks for what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's impressive.
Yeah. Thank you.